I'm Megan, 29, standing in the middle of the Rosewood Estate, surrounded by the soft glow of fairy lights and the warm smiles of our loved ones. I can't help but reflect on the whirlwind of events that led me here. Just 48 hours ago, I was convinced my wedding was over, my heart shattered by a cruel note from my parents. My parents, Henry and Victoria Thompson, are pillars of the New York high society scene. Henry is the CEO of a large investment bank, and Victoria is a well-known socialite who spends her days networking and attending charity galas. They've always had a clear vision for my life: Ivy League education, a high-profile career in finance, and a marriage to a man from a similarly wealthy and well-connected family. I did attend Yale, as they wished, but my passion was in graphic design. After graduation, I joined a small but innovative design studio instead of taking a job at my father's bank. Over the years, I built a solid reputation in the industry, much to my parents' initial dismay. They saw my career as a temporary detour before I settled down with the right man. 2 years ago, I met Ethan at a charity event for urban art projects. Ethan is a 32-year-old art teacher at a local high school. He grew up in a working-class family in Queens. His father is a mechanic, and his mother is a school librarian. He worked his way through college on scholarships and part-time jobs, eventually earning a master's in art education. From the moment I saw him on stage, sharing his vision for bringing art into the lives of underprivileged kids, I was smitten. His passion, humility, and genuine love for his students were infectious. Our first date was at a small art gallery filled with his students' work, followed by a cozy dinner at a family-owned Italian trattoria. For the first time, I felt completely myself, free from the pressure to conform to my parents' standards. 6 months ago, during a weekend getaway in the Hamptons, Ethan proposed with a simple but beautiful ring that had been in his family for generations. I said yes without hesitation. When I called my parents to tell them the news, their response was lukewarm at best. They insisted on hosting an elaborate wedding at the Rosewood Estate, the most exclusive venue in the city. The wedding planning became a constant battle between my vision and my parents. They wanted a large, opulent affair with over 300 guests, a famous orchestra, and a top-notch caterer. I wanted something smaller, more intimate, and true to Ethan and me. Ethan, always the peacemaker, suggested we find a middle ground. As the wedding date approached, the stress grew. My mother made subtle jabs at Ethan's family background, and my father was more direct, suggesting I consider other suitors from more suitable families. 3 months before the wedding, my parents invited Ethan's parents over for dinner. Throughout the evening, they made snide remarks about their modest lifestyle, which made me seethe with anger. After that dinner, I confronted my parents, but they simply couldn't understand why I was so upset. They believed that Ethan wasn't good enough for me, and no amount of compromise on my part seemed to change their minds. 1 week before the wedding, I came home early for a final dress fitting. As I walked past my father's study, I heard voices. Curious, I peeked through the slightly ajar door. I heard my father talking to a private investigator about Ethan. They were discussing his student loans and some ambiguous details about his past relationships. I stormed in, demanding an explanation. My father tried to justify their actions, saying they were just looking out for my best interests. They showed me photos of Ethan with an ex-girlfriend at a wedding taken a few weeks after we first met. I was devastated, feeling like my trust in Ethan had been shattered. That evening, when Ethan came over, I showed him the photos. He explained that he and his ex were already in the process of breaking up when we met, and they attended the wedding as friends to avoid drama. Part of me wanted to believe him, but I was also deeply hurt that he hadn't told me about it earlier. I needed space to think, so I stayed at my friend Lily's place for a couple of days. During that time, my parents called constantly, urging me to cancel the wedding. But after reflecting on our relationship, I realized that Ethan was the one I wanted to spend my life with. 3 days before the wedding, I went back to my parents' house to pick up some things. There, on the entry table, was a note. Wedding off. Expect a call from my lawyer. We've taken matters into our own hands. I was in shock. I called Ethan and he rushed over. We soon discovered that my parents had canceled all the wedding arrangements and were threatening legal action to protect family assets. They claimed that the trust fund set up for me by my grandparents had conditions regarding marriage, and they could withhold it if they deemed the marriage unsuitable. They also demanded the return of all wedding gifts and preparations purchased with family funds. Ethan and I were determined not to let them win. We started making alternative arrangements for a small wedding. Ethan's family was incredibly supportive. His mother offered their backyard for the ceremony, and his sister lent us all her wedding decorations. Just when things seemed at their worst, my grandmother, Amelia, showed up at Ethan's apartment. My grandmother is a 78-year-old force to be reckoned with. She's always been the black sheep of the family, more concerned with personal happiness than social status. She told me that 50 years ago, she was in a similar situation. She fell in love with a musician from a working-class background, but her parents forced her to break it off and marry my grandfather, a wealthy businessman. She didn't want me to make the same mistake. Grandma used her influence to reinstate all the wedding arrangements at the Rosewood Estate. She also ensured that my trust fund would be transferred to my name, regardless of my marriage. On our wedding day, as I walked down the aisle on my grandmother's arm, I felt a sense of peace and certainty. Ethan's vows brought tears to my eyes, and I knew that we had overcome the greatest obstacle together. After the wedding, my parents sent a cold note, reaffirming their disapproval. But surrounded by the love and support of our true friends and family, their rejection hurt less. In the months that followed, my parents slowly started to come around. Ethan's art program received a major grant, and his work was featured in a national magazine. My father finally made a positive comment about him, which was a small but significant step forward. Looking back, I'm grateful for the challenges we faced. They taught me the importance of standing up for what I believe in and the true meaning of family and love. The wedding may not have gone as my parents planned, but it was perfect for us.